Hello and welcome back to Dave's Towpath Dawdles, where I switch to exploring the canal side angle on things. We start today in my home city of Sheffield, here at Victoria Quays. Well, that's actually given things away a slight bit, hasn't it? We're at the southern terminus of the super historic Sheffield and Tinsley Canal, which is itself a later formed segment of the longer Sheffield to Rotherham route, and part of the even longer Sheffield and South Yorkshire navigation. Confused? I'll clear things up for you a bit later. Now, first in here on our right, as we emerge, we have the former merchants' offices. Built to reflect the thriving coal industry of the 1860s, connecting both the railway and the canal, they were utilised by workers from both sides of the trade, transport-wise. They are still offices today, like the majority of other remaining buildings on this site have been since a huge restoration in the 90s. I'm going to make a nice, slow, gentle walk by here, because these are so wonderfully kept. Along with coal, there were other industries starting to catch on as well at the time. There was also grain amongst other major goods that needed the barges to get around. Duly reflecting that is this fantastic building bearing down on us on our right here. Isn't she beautiful? This immense Straddle warehouse was built in 1895 as a facility to offload grain from arriving barges bringing their supplies into the city. Incoming barges would moor in the bays underneath, with the grain bags being hoisted through trapdoors to reach storage areas on the upper levels. Although closed in 1970, following a rapid decline in the industry, it gained Grade 2 listed status in addition to its redevelopment as offices in 1995. Since the COVID pandemic struck, this magnificent survivor has once again stood vacant, although at time of speaking is awaiting conversion into apartments. And I think it's fair to imagine that its future occupants will be afforded an enviable view of a bygone but important industrial age straight beneath the windowsill. Unlike the Straddle, this one is still currently occupied at time of talking, even if that "to let" sign might say otherwise down there. See all the goods lift hatches still lining from top to bottom with a lovely large pane of glass in them now, and fantastic former ironwork reinforcements still in check. Complete rows right across all three levels. And she gets a little better looking seen from the road as well, don't you agree? And this radiant red brick neighbour just over to our right is the former Tinsley Coal Company's Wharf house office, which dates back to 1855. Sharing its space with a number of other local businesses, the area straight behind it is the site of the former coal yard, where cargo was transferred from incoming barges arriving from Tinsley Colliery onto waiting carts for onward distribution. This building was also home to the Wharf stables, which were located in the basement area, out of view behind this wall. As I've accidentally almost exposed a few car number plates today already, I'd rather keep this one hidden from sight just before complaints start mounting on the channel. We have yet another splendid survivor to visit before we set off on our way. While I do accept this might actually be a canal video, there's quite a feast of former railway connectivity along this canal route in particular. The long, low curving viaduct coming up on our left here once carried a siding connecting to the former Manchester, Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway, which in fact crosses over in a short distance, and its own operating company itself was a major co-runner in the canal terminal's industry history. While I've been rabbiting, I've actually overshot the way up to it. It's actually up these steps. Sadly, a gate put in place by that hotel bars us from getting along the full route. But round about where we are now, would have once been standing in front of a pair of buffers or two. We'll follow the viaduct from on the ground instead, where there is actually still some railway here. Probably a small industrial track transferring stuff from the offloading barges. Switch back to the viaduct again as we come to the curve in mention. Cute little archways, all now occupied by businesses, and the entrance to that Best Western hotel up there. Continue along our study of the curve, as I promised. Always an endearing sign. Canal and River Trust headquarters. This barge on the right you might recognise. It is prevalent on its tours up and down the Tinsley Canal, or the Sheffield and Tinsley Canal. I think it's too soon to be shortening the names yet. It could yet overtake us today. It's got a much higher capacity than a one on the Peak Forest, the Judith Mary, if you remember that one from my last videos. So this is the end of the sidings viaduct, where it's been severed off. There's a lovely old gas lamp again, or it's electric now, but same design. A stairway's up there, like at the other end, but also like at the other end, there's a gate, and this time it's down at the bottom. Don't worry, I've got a few photos from Flickr to share from when I was more successful back in 2017. Good year for rail exploration, I think. On the left here, we've got one more canal side classic, the former Sheaf Works office. Opened in 1820, just after completion of the canal, occupied by the William Greaves firm, later Turton. Since been in use as a pub, currently headquarters for the National Campaign for Real Ale. Stroll on past what used to be the company's Weybridge office here. And still a look at her from the front. Doesn't appear to be much activity happening here nowadays. The last known occupants apparently being some company called Ant. You'd think a business like that would have had legs. Come over to our right again. The viaduct we've just been walking along, or alongside. This is where the sidings went on the way to join the mainline MSLR. Slightly over that way. We're seeing more of these piers in a moment or two once we cross over a bridge. Last look at the barges before we do though. More like a submarine, that one, isn't it? Been on plenty of other canals recently where the barges are actually almost doing an impression of one, come to think of it. Apologies for interruption by the motorbike and the police sirens in the background. The stroll back this way is inevitably in order. Across the bridge we go. And while we do, we have another view. And a free duck with it as well, and some conversation. Yes, mate, I know. You think we're all quackers as video makers. Setting off the rest of our way across, and we come to land comfortably at the two piers again. Beautifully done up to commemorate the recent bicentennial, which took place in 2019. Horse on that one. While the font on this one obviously changes to reflect a more modern vibe. Now, at last, we head out of town and underneath a few bridges. And we'll get the most modern edition out of the way first, I think. Bridge number 1, if it's called that, carries the Derek Dooley way above, which is a connection from the other side of the city. That was built in 1997, sometime around then, linking through to the Sheffield Parkway. Lusciously done up paint-wise. Nice sort of a plum red colour up there. So I'm being very naughty with a spray can on this second bridge. This is where we go underneath the former MSLR main line, or Great Central Railway. Just just north of Sheffield Victoria, which is where those buildings are over there. You can see the chimney, and this lovely huge chimney itself, part of the Sheffield Quays industry, not the station itself. As you can tell, Sheffield Victoria wasn't exactly small. Apologise for that cyclist then. As you can see, The width of the bridge gives scope to the size of the station. It was actually 5 platforms. One track still survives, so there's platform 5 actually, right above where we're passing now. I'll try and make a new railway feature about that soon. Because this is of course a waterway feature. There's a bit of a barge industry along here. I've been sitting up there for ages. Wonder if the guy sent in doesn't want it back. Planet, often think I'm on a different one myself of those, or other people do. On my right, delicious industrial frontage again. The next mile of this canal, more or less, is dwarfed either side by derelict relics of Sheffield's much revered Steel Age. And while we're walking on here, another one of my favourites, which I'm still struggling to identify the exact purpose of it officially. This old archway, it's probably a hatch for loading onto barges from beneath one of the various works buildings here. Like a little bit of poetry here. And a crow. As we close up on our first bridge, first proper Victorian era bridge. Just crossing beneath Cadman Street here at bridge number 3. Small industrial back road that goes over our heads, then descends eventually to the end of the Victoria Arches. That's the Victoria Station Arches, I should say. Already we meet with all these redundant windows of a world long lost. And I think someone's going to lose their bollard soon as well, if there's any more subsidy beneath. Ooh, train. Look out of our left quickly. They come in shapes and sizes and brick shades. Straight in front now, we're coming underneath the Midland Railway route, that still is. We're going to walk underneath here and admire the rivets. Originally it was 4 tracks here, I think 2 might have just branched off into the various factories. Something else very eye-catching in an unusual way just ahead though. Even as a practicing Christian now, I have to cock an amused snook at this one every time we come past it. Someone's got their own personal skeleton garden sitting here for a few years now. Not sure it's meant as some sort of burglar deterrent or simple macabre decoration. There were originally a pair of skeletons sitting having afternoon tea there. I think they've arranged things since then. One's lost its head there. At least nothing can get into his thick skull anymore. At least he won't have to worry about anything not getting into his skull any longer. Coming up on bridge number 5 beneath Bernard Road here. We'll look up a minute. We've got 2 generations of brick wall now right here. Don't know if they're all built by the same proprietor. Anyway. Underneath this latest bridge of iron and wood we wander. and into a wide whirl of colour. Some more old industry tucked away in the trees. Now this evil staircase on my right, I struggled down with my bike in the past, so lucky I've not got that today. Then we have a double treat. It's lovely 4-story structure of brick of all sorts of different tones and shades. Once the trees get out of the way. Windows of all sizes. And remember play school. And just up in front, and on the left here is another of the best bricked up former barge loading entrance there. I think there might just be a door over on the right where those windows are. It goes right down to the bottom. But then come across on our right a moment, we have this cute little railway abutment up to the right, very short former works branch went over where that end of a skip is there. Now as we head on further away from Sheffield city centre, I think it's finally time to get on with the history. So let's go back to the start as we start along this nicely refurbished towpath. It's 1678 and Sheffield is this little town trapped within hills on either side, and there's no treadable major road or water route giving traders an easy way in with their goods. And as you might likely guess, those 3 centuries ago, water was usually the solution to those sorts of problems. There were proposals to send boats up and down the River Don from that day, which was sadly met with a look of apathy from the local majority. Fast forward almost half a century to 1726, and some sheets of paper finally reached Parliament, dealt with by cutlers based in Sheffield. All seemed quiet at first, but the then Duke of Norfolk threw something of a hissy fit. He had his own rival coal industries and mills long established in the Sheffield valleys, and was clearly aware that this would hinder his existing monopoly somehow. After a further half-decade back at the drawing board, the Duke decided to allow the Don to become a navigable waterway, but no further inward than Tinsley, which is itself about 3 miles ahead of us now, and where we'll eventually land, although on the next instalment, i.e. it will be back to the horse and cart for the rest of the haul to Sheffield. Some people just had to be awkward. With this arrangement having been agreed upon, quite reluctantly I'm probably guessing, locks were created connecting the section of the River Don from Rotherham to Tinsley, and it opened for business in 1751 at last. As we descend upon Bacon Lane Bridge now, this other bit of canal was still some 7 decades from becoming a reality yet. However, we're waiting for the rest of the story. I've got something else to show you. Bridge number 6 has to be one of the most brutally notorious bits of the whole route, at least if you're a cyclist. or a very tall person walking. Hands up anyone who thinks the scene in front of us now looks a little familiar. This spot here is of course known for its appearance in the film The Full Monty, in which a couple of redundant steelworkers, having raided a piece of girder from their old factory, decide to climb across to the roof of a dumped car in the middle of the canal, and inevitably the girder doesn't make it across before his colleague issues his ineffective idea of an SOS to a nearby passerby with a dog. Oh, so that's what my housemate's taste in movies has amounted to all these years, is it? Then again, who isn't partial to a bit of hot chocolate at night, eh? In the intervening near 3 decades since The Full Monty was filmed, it may be a bit of an understatement to say this scene's changed a bit. There's so much demolition of what made the city famous having taken place. What I will stop and admire though is these walls and windows which have somehow obtained a stay of execution all this time. I would have to say that the medal is safe for this bit. Always steals my eye every single time, bar none, as I come along the canal. Listed, I'm not sure. There's obvious evidence if everything around it has been completely flattened into crushed brick. I do remember seeing a lot more glass in those frames though on previous passings. Still not sure as we go past some lovely vegetation if that shed or its remaining skeleton of is still meant to be left standing. Still got 2 sides to it. 2 sides to every shed. Make its way past some more walls that stand surviving. Incidental design there. I love the curvature where the brick's been pulled away. Best row of bricked up windows I've seen all trip. And yeah, we've got a layer of what might be thin concrete in front of them. And now one of those interesting industrial bridges. Setting off again from the wonderful walls, we've got every possible bridge there is to select from now. Starting with this beauty beneath Stanleyforth Road. Also, some signs of the evident towpath refurbishment extending this way further. It's been going on since about 2020. Obviously it takes a bit of time if they've got more lucrative jobs elsewhere. Meanwhile, we'll amble on further between this next bridge, beneath this next bridge. Well, between this next bridge and the last bridge, and this above us now was placed to carry a super tram above us, which opened in the mid-90s. This is the section between Sheffield and Meadowhall. as we let that jogger past, I think it's time to pick up on the history again. As most of us are obviously aware, or have been reminded since I showed you that full Monty scene earlier, Sheffield was becoming renowned at that stage for that wonderful thing called steel. Industry supremos, including Benjamin Huntsman, however, saw having all the materials heaved on the back of a horse-drawn cart that whole way from Tinsley to the heart of Sheffield less than efficient, especially with the swelling industry in the Attercliffe area, which the canal bypassed closely, or was going to at some stage in the future. Further negotiations continued to be made, and some decades further on finally materialised. The necessary further few miles of waterway were finally completed and opened in February 1819, connecting the Don and Attercliffe with the city and sending steel supplies skyrocketing nationwide. That older terminal warehouse that we looked at back at the quays also opened that same year and ensured a smooth transition of supplies would thrive from that day until the big eventual decline of the barge operated industry set in at the turn of the 20th century, when as the train and motor vehicle also had something to say. As did most barge operators by that time probably, but I doubt it would be anything polite enough to repeat on this video. Now we have to swirl around to meet Chippingham Basin over here on our left. More of a water lily population than a barging one these days, I must say. Obviously got more passing trams for company than boats. One last bridge in front of us now for today's trip, and one more of these impromptu resurfaces. We've got a narrows here, which is like a chicane on a canal. It's to slow boats up a bit so no one bumps into each other trying to squeeze past where they can't. And we scoot underneath the former Great Central Railway to Rotherham, which saunters into what was once Attercliffe Station just over on our left. We're going to be seeing the remains of that in a tick. As we enjoy the sight from across the water, I will now bring your attention right along to that line of black brick over there. That is the back of the former Attercliffe train station we're staring at here. The first suburban stop if you're once setting out on the Great Central routes to either Barnsley or Rotherham, which would diverge at Tinsley South. And as our first moving barge of the day slews smoothly past us, time to conclude part one of our Tinsley adventure. So, I hope you've enjoyed our little ramble along the Sheffield and Tinsley Canal so far, as well as put up with my rambling. Don't forget to subscribe, because the rest of the journey to Tinsley is but a mere aqueduct away. See you later.